I'm looking for the sun. I'm really looking for the sun today because we are here today for our next episode of Brighter Days Through Better Movement. And our pretense and our reason for this series is to help our community get back to being the best they can just in time for the summer solstice, the brightest, the longest day of the year. Unfortunately, today in little old Rhode Island, it's a little rainy on this April 1st day, but April showers come May flowers, a little more sunshine, and COVID numbers and this pandemic, we seem to be on the better side of that. We want to help you be the strongest, healthiest, happiest, fittest, all of those you can be by the summer solstice. And to help you on that journey, I am joined today by Dr. Aaron Ulvestad. Aaron, it is great to have you here.
Thanks. Happy to be here.
Aaron is one of our physical therapists. He works up in our North Providence clinic. And the fun thing about Aaron is, although he is a physical therapist, he also is also known as AKA Dr. Deadlift. And it kind of sounds like a Marvel character, or a superhero, or a gym rat. I don't know. It could be a lot of things, but there's something I love about the deadlift because it does sound a little scary of movement or exercise, yet it is actually one of my favorites. So when I saw your name, Dr. Deadlift, I was kind of like, perfect. You're obviously a gym rat. You all know about strength training, but many people might not, see the middle-aged skinny woman doing deadlifts, but I too think it's a great exercise to do. So Aaron, thank you for being here. You have managed to get through the last year, through this pandemic. Tell us a little bit, what have you done with your spare time? How have you managed to be the healthiest and best you can through this challenging year?
Yeah, so definitely had a lot of spare time, but that's really good because I was in a residency. And that took a ton of extra time. So that's a couple hours a day of studying. So that was fun, finally over. But other than that, I really just kind of hammered down on strength training and fitness. I think I came out of the first month of the pandemic with a little more errand to go around. So I kind of hammered that down and went back to, getting the diet together, doing a little more strength training, being a little healthier. And then that and home projects. Home projects have been a ton of fun for me over the last year.
I love the little more errand to go around. So a little bit of, maybe not the 19 pounds, but a little bit of COVID-19 crept in. But I'm pleased you managed to get that under control.
Yeah, there's a little something extra there, but it's under control now.
It's on its way out.
Yeah.
It's on its way out. Well, I know there's many people who have taken on some different eating habits through the pandemic, which is very understandable. But again, part of this journey is to get us back to being the best we can so we can enjoy our spring and summer. So today, one of our big highlights is going to be talking about strength training. And Aaron, I'm not sure if you want to start by talking a little bit about why is strength training so important, how much we should do. What is it about the strength training that makes it something that's really important to our overall health and well-being?
Yeah, that's a great question because there's a lot of answers. And I guess the main one would be just general physical preparedness for things. So, the stronger you are, the better you are at handling just daily activities, just daily facets of life. If you're strong, maybe picking something heavy up at a weird angle doesn't tweak your back. If you're strong, maybe doing something new doesn't make you sore for like 3 or 4 days. So I think it's just got so many applications, even if you think about it as far as like, in the aging population, like what does strength training mean to them? Well, strength training to them is higher bone density, better cross-sectional area of their muscles, which means, bigger muscles, which has been found in a lot of research to really relate to longevity and, just ability to thrive in general. So there's really, there's no bad application of it. One of the podcasts I listen to, it's by this guy, Mark Bell. He likes to say strength is never a weakness, and I typically tend to agree with him. Mm-hmm.
So as I'm hearing from you, let's create a little list together. Because I think, one of the things I often hear people say is like, well, I'm really busy. I, am doing gardening work, or I have a laboring job, a physical job, then why would I actually have to spend time training and doing kind of resistance or strength training? And I think, our bodies are made to move and to work. We feel better, we feel happier, and metabolism's better. All these things when we're working our bodies, and that's what strength training is really about, is working the muscles of your body. So, I'll start. Maybe we'll go back and forth. We'll make this a little bit of a game. So one thing I'll say is increasing, this could be a little challenge between us. Good luck, Dr. Deadlift. Increasing your muscle mass or your strength improves your metabolism. You've got to use more calories, improves your metabolism. So it helps with weight management. There you go. You're next.
High intensity training, or really any strength training whatsoever, will improve your mood.
Excellent. And we all like to have a better mood, don't we?
Yes.
And there's good research out there. Actually, I do have a 17-year-old son, and he did say to me how good he feels after he lifts weights. And I'm like, yeah, you go get him. I like to run, but you like to lift weights, okay? I would say that strength training, especially as we grow older, helps to minimize the risk of falls. And if you do fall, then you've got upper body strength to actually catch you and stop you breaking your hip or smashing in your face. So it helps to minimize the risk and seriousness of falls.
Okay, I'll see that and raise you. Strength training will decrease your risk of injury, especially in the athletic population.
I love it. Absolutely great. I will actually add to that and one-up you and say it will potentially improve your performance. So whether you're a football player, whether you're a runner, so, we've got some different extremes, doing some strength training that complements the kind of athletic sport or pastime you're involved with will actually improve your performance.
Ooh.
I know it's getting tough now.
Reaching the bottom of the barrel here. Strength training, or really any type of exercise, should improve your cognitive function.
I'm trying to think of a saying. I've heard you say things like movement is medicine, motion is lotion, but I would like to say strength training just makes you smarter, or maybe smarter people actually do strength training. But I'll go with it. Cognition. I'm sure we can find a study in there.
Something like
I will put this one in for all the ladies out there and probably for the men. If you do strength training, you're more likely to wear a bikini this summer.
That's right.
Helps your wardrobe.
Yes, definitely. The more you can wear. Ooh, what else? Strength training will have positive cardiovascular benefits.
Absolutely. It is really funny because you hear people say, well, I have to go for a run or ride a bike or swim for cardiovascular benefits. But I think people have to realize that strength training is also helping all those blood vessels. It's helping them train all the smooth muscles, pump the blood and all the nutrients to your muscles to help them function better. So that will ultimately help your cardiac system. So completely agree with you on that one. All right, we're up to 8. We've got 2 more to go. Now I'm going to say metabolism. Well, actually, it's going to improve your BMI, so your height to weight ratios, and that's going to minimize your risk of hypertension, diabetes, obesity, and certain kinds of cancers, certain GI issues. So there's a whole bunch of things.
Ooh, so we need one more, huh?
More. And if you can't think of one, it means I win.
I think you win. I don't have any other good research-based ones.
The last one in is I'd actually say it makes you happy, and you alluded to this. It helps your mood. It can be really fun. It can be really social. You can do it with friends. You can do it with family members. You can turn it into fun competitions and push-up competitions and all different things. Like, it can be fun and enjoyable, and anything that we can do that makes us smile is worthwhile doing. So good job. I do like being a winner, but I'm sure when it comes to doing a deadlift, I have a feeling you might be able to lift a little more than me. But for people who are listening out there today, please listen, please comment If you are out there, please tell us who you are and where you are, and we will add you into the drawing. Now, you may have already signed up through performanceptri.com/live, and I would suggest you go there anyway and sign up, because that will put you in the drawing every week. Every week we give away something else. But if you're already in there, sign up today. Let us know you are there, and we will put you in. We'll put an extra entry in for you, because today, to the value of $199, we are giving away a Hypervolt Go. Now, these are awesome. I have one at home. I use it. My daughter uses it. My son uses it. Husband uses it. Really great at creating that vibration on your muscles. Really helps to, I mean, whether there's a true science to it, people can argue. Maybe stretching's better, maybe foam rolling, I don't know. But I will tell you that when I use my Hypervolt, I really feel like I'm getting a really great deep tissue massage in all those tight areas, and I feel like it helps my recovery. It helps modulate pain relief and a lot of things. Do you use a Hypervolt, Aaron?
I use the ones we have here, definitely. I'm, usually really getting in there with them.
Yeah. That's awesome. So if you're out there, please let us know you're there. We also want you to post any questions you've got. So if you've got questions for Dr. Deadlift, whether they're physical therapy related or deadlift or strength training related, he is the man. I know I won the competition and it looks like I know more, but actually that's not the case. I've just been around a little bit longer. So let's start off. We do have a question coming from Caitlin Menard. Caitlin, what advice would you give a beginner who wants to start deadlifting? What a perfect question. Thank you, Caitlin. A big shout out to you for the winning question today, I'd say. And it's a great way for you, Aaron, to start off with. When people hear deadlift, they go like, ooh, that sounds like that's something you do at the gym with a belt on and crazy weights, and I could hurt my back. Tell us about why you deadlift, and tell us about how someone begins with it, and talk about that.
Yeah, so it's something we do in here a lot, and it's a big part of how a lot of us treat here. For a lot of people, it's really scary to have a weight in front of them and to pick it up and to feel the muscles in their back working. And for a lot of people, they've gotten advice in the past to say basically you don't do that. The problem with that is very, very functional, and if you want to be able to pick things up off the ground, you're probably going to have to be able to do a deadlift motion. So we use it here all the time, just from like a strength standpoint, it's fantastic because it replicates, very functional movements, just kind of like I said, but also from like if you look at it from a loading standpoint, or, trying to get people to tolerate a little bit more, it's fantastic, being able to slowly progress people to tolerate doing more and more and pushing themselves more and more, and that's really how you get people better. And so that'd be my advice, really. When you start with deadlifting, just start slow. Start with low weight, really hammer down the form, make sure it feels okay. In here, we do kettlebell deadlifts from a stool. So the range of motion is only 10, 12 inches. It's really not very much, but it's definitely a good start, and you'd be amazed how quickly you'll progress. Do you have to go up to 300 pounds on it? Not necessarily. I mean, it's fun. You can. But you can start with as little as 5 or 10 pounds and just slowly progress yourself. And you'd be amazed at how much better it feels as you get stronger and stronger and as your back gets more and more resilient.
Can you talk a little bit about technique, Aaron?
Yeah. So a lot of people, because again, they're afraid of putting strain through their back. They're afraid of using the muscles in their back. So they try and turn a deadlift into a weird looking squat. And in reality, when we talk about the deadlift, we're talking about basically two major things happening. We're looking at hip extension, so the hips going from flexed, or your knees being close to your chest, to the hips going to extension, which is knees further away from your chest. So we're talking about hip extension, and what we want to see is your trunk stay in a pretty neutral position. If it moves a little bit, no big deal. It's not, it happens. Even under load, it's totally fine. But trunk typically in a pretty neutral, stable position. And you want to see a lot of movement about the hips. So if you look at it from the side, you really shouldn't see the spine moving a ton. It should basically more or less staying in a relatively straight line. And then all the rotations coming at the hips as they move from, flexion. So knees closer to chest to extension, knees further away from the chest. So, going back away to the backside of your body. A little bit of knee bend. You don't need the legs to be totally straight by any means, but you don't really want to turn into a squat. You want to have your shoulders higher than your hips in most cases.
Great point. So what I'm hearing here to summarize for people out there who are asking for beginners is start with a low weight, that 5 to 10 pound. And I would warn people, sometimes a deadlift feels quite easy and you think you can do a lot more, but the next day when your hamstrings are on fire, you'll realize you overdid it. So don't suddenly think, oh, this doesn't feel that hard. You've got to make sure you build up. It's a little bit different to a squat where you can feel like you can struggle a little bit more. So start with a low weight. And I think, Aaron, you bring up two other great points is you don't have to do a full range. Just start with a smaller range, build up to it. And also remember, this is more of a hip exercise. This isn't about moving your spine. You got to use your great abs and your low back muscles to keep your spine still. This is about using, and luckily I don't have a camera on my good sized glutes, but this is about using those butt muscles because they are the muscles that help to stabilize you when you pick things up, when you lift. So I think people often think deadlifts is all about the back. It's about stabilizing the spine. It's really much more about the glutes and the hamstrings. And I love your point too. So often I see people deadlifting and it's, look, this quirky looking squat, whatever, like weird thing. Like, yeah, like you want a little soft bend there, but you just don't want them locked back. So great advice there. Some other questions coming up. What are the best, this one's from Caitlin Amelia. What are the best ways to recover after resistance training? So let's touch on that, and then we'll jump on to some of the questions about the Hypervolt. So, and actually someone else asked about what's the best way to warm up before strength training. So if you could speak a little bit about warm up and best ways to recover, I think those questions would be appreciated.
Sure. Yeah. So I actually think they are very similar concepts. So the first one, recovery. What's the best recovery after strength training? A lot of people make the mistake. They're really, really sore and they're like, oh, I'm so sore. I'm not going to do anything today. I'm just going to sit on my couch. You're going to be a lot more sore, a lot longer if you do that. So the best thing for you would be active recovery. So doing something that gets you moving. It doesn't have to be the same exercise you just did. You do want to give those muscles and your joints a rest. But doing something as simple as like going for a walk, hopping on the bike. You can even do a little bit of like dynamic flexibility, like, just walking stretches, stuff like that. You can do some foam roller, and you could definitely use like a massage gun, things like that. But be sure to follow those up with movement because, their best utility really, foam rolling, massage gun, ice, heat, anything like that. They open up windows where pain is decreased or soreness is decreased in this case, and you can move a little better. And you can get back to moving the way you were before you had the soreness. And with that said, best warm up for resistance training is going to be movement as well. So you can definitely get some stretches in there. I love dynamic stretching, doing some walking stretches, really getting, if we're talking about like lower body exercises, really making sure your hips are moving well. If your hips aren't moving well, you're going to have a pretty rough time. Same with making sure hips, knees, ankles warmed up. And then, same for your upper back, your shoulders, everything for that for upper body. So you really can't go wrong with movement is the gist of it.
You bring up some great points. I love how you point out that the use of heat, ice, foam rolling, Theraguns, all of that, they're really just tools. They help you feel better, and that then makes it easier for you to move. So if you do overdo it, or for some people, they actually think it's being successful, but say you are sore after some strength training, the best thing you can do is flush out that lactic acid. That's part of the reason for that soreness. And the best way to do that is increase the circulation. And the best way to increase circulation is to exercise and move, whether that is walking, biking, some dynamic stretching. So things like the Theragun, you're not going to hurt yourself with those things, but they're going to feel good. And you're going to be like, oh, I feel better. But you can't just do that and take away the more dynamic movement things. So they're really a tool that just helps you. and helps you in that journey. And I love your point too, Aaron, about you really can't go wrong. Sometimes I wish there was these, here's the magical stretches and movements that you do before you deadlift or squat or push up or whatever. There is no magic science to it. It's a little bit more based on thinking to yourself, if I'm going to squat or deadlift or do push-ups or whatever strength training you're doing or whatever movement you're doing, I need to think about what joints are moving and which muscles are moving, and to prepare them. And to prepare them, I want to make sure that I've taken them through a full range of motion. And by taking muscles and joints through their full range of motion, it helps bring all the right nutrients. And when a joint and muscle has all the right nutrients there, it's going to function optimally and have decreased risk of injury. So a lot of the time it's finding things that you enjoy. A lot of the times it may be altering things depending on who you are. You know, I'm a little older. I know it's hard to believe. I am a little older than Aaron. And the fact of the matter, it does take me a little bit longer to warm up now that I'm older. It's just a fact of life. But it's okay, and I will spend an extra take a little longer to warm up before I go for a run or do any strength training. So I think it's just really important to get an understanding that you have to warm up, because it will minimize your risk of injuries and you will perform better. And movement at the end of the day is the optimal thing for all of those things. Kimberly Corwin asked out, how important is strength training to longevity? You know, it's a great question, Kim, and I think that Aaron's and I, top 9 reasons for strength training, there isn't this true correlation. If you do strength training, you will live longer. I mean, I'm sure there is some correlation out there. However, by optimizing your muscle strength, and it will improve your metabolism, your cardiovascular health, minimize your risks of falling. And these are all things that will improve your quality of life and minimize your risks of diabetes, all of these others. So I do think that that strength training component, we see it from the national standards, 2 to 3 times a week, you should be doing strength training. That's what everyone should do. Now, someone asked a question, Jess Miozi, I like this question. And Aaron, I'm going to shoot this over to you. Which type of deadlift would be recommended for someone who may not be involved in sports anymore, but still wants to perform them for strength purposes, which is my favorite? So we obviously have Dr. Deadlift there, and you alluded to that. You like to deadlift 300 pounds, and, you know, high five to you for that one, Aaron, but it doesn't sound like Jess is interested in this, but maybe she wants to live longer. So tell us about how you would, what advice you would give someone like Jess when it comes to deadlifting.
Sure. I'd like to start off by saying, hi, Mom. Kimberly's my mom.
Oh, hi, Kimberly.
But you answered her question very, very well. And,
oh, good. I hope you answered it the same way. I mean, she
yeah.
listened to her son, so now she's got to listen to another PT.
Oh, she gets enough of my nonsense anyway, so it's good. It's good. She's on the strength training kick too. So.
I love having mothers on this.
Yeah. So as far as Jess's questions is concerned, that's a good one. It's highly individualized. You know, I think your deadlift should be the one that works the best for you. So right off the bat, I could name like 4 or 5 different types of deadlifts, but the most important factor is, you know, what's your goal? So for a strength purpose, do you really need a barbell that's in front of your shins that makes it like a difficult form for you to really, you know, perform the exercise correctly? Not really. You could do it as, you know, just a simple like kettlebell deadlift. So that's in between your legs. The form's a lot simpler. You can do it as a hex bar deadlift. I'm sure a lot of people who are listening or watching have seen the bars you stand inside of. You can really do any variation. You can do a single leg deadlift. So that really doesn't take a lot of like, you know, a lot of form or really a lot of weight to perform for strength training goals. So really whichever one you have the easiest time with, they all basically work the same thing. And I would say the ones to avoid would be the ones that cause you to push yourself to a place where you might have some discomfort or you might be having a really hard time with the form, because it's not really, you know, from a barbell deadlift standpoint, unless you're powerlifting, you technically don't need to do it.
Yeah. And I'll add in there because, again, I probably deadlift a little bit different to you, Aaron, but I have to say that I really actually love the single leg deadlifts because they are also working in your balance. So balance is obviously something we should continue to challenge. So for me, I like the single leg deadlift. And then I will also put variations where I'll do it really slowly or I'll hold it for a length of time. And you're really trying to work your gluteal muscles, your butt muscles, your hamstrings, your core. So if you change the tempo, you also find you don't need to use as much resistance. So someone had a question there about what can you use at home. If you don't have a kettlebell or barbells or any weights, you can do a deadlift, which is another reason why I like it without weights. You can use a TheraBand. You can tie a TheraBand onto something if you've got that. You can do what we call an isometric, where you're just pulling on something with resistance that you don't actually move. You can, if you've got whatever weights you can use, but you don't have to use any weights. So if you go to a single leg deadlift and focus very much on your posture and do 10 deadlifts with a single leg. On the last one, hold it out there for 10 seconds. Then do 10 more. I can assure you by the end of that, you have worked your glutes and your hamstrings, your calf muscles, your core really hard, and you're going to get really good functional outcomes because of that. It's going to be a little different to the 300-pound power lift that Aaron is doing, but it's essentially working the same muscles, just in a slightly different way. To piggyback off that a little bit, this almost goes to the other extreme. Josephine Grady is asking, do you suggest using a standard bar or a trap bar? You want to jump onto let's jump onto a little bit of the powerlifting stage of it, like looking at the different bars, looking at, someone else was asking about how many reps, what resistance. I tried to give the other side to go for the, hey, if you're doing a deadlift purely for good overall health and strength, great, and optimizing your strength, yeah, you can look at slowing down the reps, adding in the balance. You don't even have to use weights. But if you're someone who's like, all right, I want to do some real powerlifting and get some hypertrophy and all of that, you are going to focus on your weight and your reps a little bit different. So why don't you jump in and speak to that side of it, Aaron?
Yeah. And to touch on the single leg deadlift as well, I think it's fantastic. And what's nice about it, if you look at it, it actually gets pretty close to a lot of like yoga moves. Mm-hmm. So I think for a lot of people, that might be like a really good segue into, just thinking about doing something a little more like resistance oriented like that. So I think it's fantastic. As far as the first question is concerned, trap bar or barbell deadlift, my true love is the barbell deadlift. I love it. You can do it conventional or sumo, so that's like feet close together or feet super wide, and it really doesn't change the movement all that much. It's still very difficult either way. Your back positioning probably changes a little bit, but I would say for most people's purposes, if you have a hex bar or a trap bar, you're probably better off using that, especially if you're an athlete. Again, do you really need to be training that particular movement, the deadlift, the bar in front? It's great, if you can handle it, if you have like the right levers and you have the right body type for it, that's great. But if it looks like crap when you do it, and if you get under a hex bar, or get inside of a hex bar, I should say, and you can lift way better and you're getting the same effect, which is, again, combined hip and knee extension, and lumbar loading, then I say go with the hex bar. As far as the other question goes, the right reps and sets for hypertrophy and how to progress it as a PT. I'll start by saying that the progression is the same whether or not you're a PT. So the way to get stronger, the way to build muscle, it all comes down to intensity. So if you have very high intensity, you're going to have a better chance of building muscle and building strength. That being said, for the rehab population, a lot of people can't handle quite as much intensity. So you can play around with, sets and reps and things like that. But in general, hypertrophy, pretty simple. You want to keep it like 8 to 12 reps, somewhere around there. Any higher than 12, you're moving more towards, endurance training, although you still get some benefits. And any lower than like 6 to 8, you're probably working more towards strength. But again, it's a spectrum, and you're always hitting, kind of all three concepts: strength, hypertrophy, and endurance, no matter what you're doing, but you can kind of wiggle it around. And, you know, basically varying it on a regular basis is how you're going to progress it. So maybe aim for more along the strength side for a little bit, and then back off and aim towards, you know, hypertrophy for a bit, and then maybe go back and forth or move it up to, you know, more of the endurance ranges, you know, past 12. That's the best way for you to progress if you hit a wall as far as your training goes.
Great points. I love the variations and all those ideas for variation. No one should ever get sick of doing deadlifts. We've got some more questions coming up, but maybe a segue at this stage, because we talked a little bit about, someone was asking how PTs do strength training, maybe compared to other people. And as you said, it's all the same principles. Physical therapists incorporate the principles of strength training into their rehab process. We're just obviously having to monitor people based on their injuries, surgeries, and other diseases. And so they may not be able to we may not be able to provide the same kind of resistance. However, we've got certain tricks and tools, and one of those is blood flow restrictive therapy. So do you want to speak a little bit about that? And it looks like you've got the machine behind you, so you could speak a little bit about what blood flow restriction is.
I do. I have a very nice machine behind me, and this is a blood flow restriction training device. So a lot of people probably don't know what blood flow restriction is. It's a pretty new technology, pretty new rehab technique, and, you know, it's used in strength conditioning as well. But basically, it's a method that we use to decrease the amount of blood flow in and out of a limb. So venous would be out, arterial would be in. So we're restricting both. And we do that because what the research has found is that if you restrict that blood flow and then you exercise at much, much lower intensities, so as little as even just 10% of your 1 rep max. So say you could do 100 pounds on, leg press or something like that. You could do 10% of that, 10 pounds, and get similar results, similar increases in muscle size, so hypertrophy, and similar increases in strength, which is a really big deal. Its application in physical therapy, we talked about it a little bit. Not all of our patients can handle high intensity, but we still want to get them strong. So we have a really great application with blood flow restriction.
What does it feel like? Describe it.
So it's pretty uncomfortable if you really crank up the amount of, like, the percentage of occlusion. So the way you do it is you find the total amount of pressure you need. So it's basically just a glorified blood pressure cuff. Mm-hmm. You find the amount of pressure you need to occlude the entire limb, so to get no venous output and no arterial input. So you find that and you take a percentage. But you can use as low as 30% of that. So say, I actually set it up on my arm. So my total limb occlusion pressure was 172 mmHg. So for your arm, you're only going to use at most 50% of that. So that's going to be around like 86 mmHg. So it's really not that bad. And I think there was a study done where they found that if you do low load BFR and you compare it to high load resistance training, that BFR is actually more tolerable for most people.
Well, it's a really fun tool, and even though I asked you what it felt like, I was setting you up because I've done it plenty myself for some rehab of some injuries, and and I personally didn't really find it that uncomfortable. But what I found, and I know the research shows it, is that you can get really significant improvements and changes in your strength and your hypertrophy over a short amount of time without having to put the same kind of stress on the joints and the muscles that you normally would, especially if you have an injury. And, it's a fun, unique tool. Does it work alone without nothing else? No, absolutely not. But it's a fun tool, especially if you're injured. And I know there are plenty of strength training folks out there who will use this as to supplement their training. But from a rehab perspective, it's a really great way to be able to progress the strengthening and make gains at a much faster rate than what we traditionally may be able to do, and do it safely. Now, speaking of safety, Brooke Zauner asked out there, I know you talked about the positive outcomes of deadlifting. Are there risks?
Yes, there are risks with every intervention, but exercise has one of the lowest risks compared to any other intervention. So if you think about like other, other things you could do, like driving a car, for example, you drive a car every day, you're at much higher risk of getting injured doing that than exercising. But if programmed properly, if completed properly, and especially if you have someone who is, coaching you or instructing you, very, very low risk of injury there. I think they get a bad rap because you see a lot of videos of people online deadlifting too much weight for them. They get out of position and they hurt themselves, or at least it looks like they're going to hurt themselves, and they probably eventually do. So there's always a risk of injury with anything, sport, strength training, walking down the street, tripping over something and falling. But it's pretty low, relatively speaking.
Yeah. And like you said, and I'll certainly agree with you, just being smart about it, making sure your technique's right, and you're not suddenly thinking, I'm going to do ridiculous amounts of weight and do it with the wrong technique. Yeah, of course you're going to hurt yourself if you do that. But if you're doing it right, I don't know. I honestly don't think I've ever seen a patient who was truly injured because of doing a deadlift. I mean, I've seen it from other exercises, but not from deadlifts. So I agree, they really have a bad rep. Someone did ask out there about footwear. Great question. Stephen Donian, what type of footwear would you recommend for deadlifting?
Sevon, my friend. I'm getting a lot of participation here. Footwear, great question. So the deadlift in its truest form is, can you get the bar off the ground and lock your hips out, bring your hips all the way forward? And so that'd be like a full completion of deadlift, regardless what happens in between the two. And so the biggest component of that is distance from the floor. So if you're wearing a really, really high shoe or something with a lot of cushion, that's probably not great. If you're wearing a flat shoe or something with a really hard sole, or even barefoot, then that's probably the best thing you can do, because it decreases the amount of space between, the full locked out position of the deadlift, and it decreases the amount of, change in forces between the material in the shoe and, the ground. So we want to avoid those things where possible. So I would say typically if I'm deadlifting heavy, I'm in either a shoe with a very, very small bottom to it, a very stiff bottom to it, or I'm barefoot. You're
not wearing your high heels?
No. Although there is a video of someone doing it. It didn't work out very well.
But I love the point that you talk about, if you're really doing powerlifting, and really this is taking it to the extreme in a positive way, this is the right footwear. Now I would call maybe you call me like the pansy deadlifter who's doing it more for overall health and well-being, but I love to deadlift. I like it in bare feet because I feel like it works all the intrinsic in my feet a lot more. And I think that's really good, especially as a runner. It's good for me. But I'll often finish a run and then outside of my house, bless my neighbors who put up with me, do a bunch of lunge walking, squats, and then single leg deadlifts, because of the combination of strength training and the dynamic nature and the balance and the strength and stretching and modality it adds in as well. So don't suddenly think, if you're the everyday person who is adding in deadlifting as part of your week, don't suddenly think, I can only do this in special sneakers or in bare feet. If you're a runner, just do it with your sneakers on. If you want to challenge yourself a little bit more, do it in bare feet. If you're at the beach, do it when you're standing on the sand. I did that the other day. I almost fell flat on my face, but it worked my muscles in a different way. And that sort of helps piggyback off what you're saying, Aaron, about keep changing it, whether you're changing to work more sort of hypertrophy and that, 8 to 12 range and getting that muscle mass, or a higher resistance, or change the positioning of your feet, changing what you've got on your footwear. They're going to keep making your muscles have to keep working in different ways, which is ultimately going to help you live longer, maybe. We have some students here. We have some kinesiology students. It's nice to have you all here listening on. Some of them are asking about what your days look like in the clinic. So, I think that it would be nice for the public, nice for some students, even though that we're sort of all used to working in COVID situations now. What does it look like now working with the clinic when you're working with patients and clients?
Well, we're really fortunate here to have a big open clinic. So I get to do really anything I want with the patients here. I'm also fortunate to have some really good patients. So today, for example, I worked on deadlifting with one patient and front squatting with another. It depends. Every day is a new challenge, which is what's really, really nice about physical therapy, because it definitely keeps me on my toes and definitely puts my brain through a lot of work. But yeah, it's fantastic. And, going through the process of going to PT school and learning everything is great. But really getting in the clinic, working with people, working on yourself, understanding how exercises feel, how they're supposed to look, and then translating that to your patients. It's incredibly rewarding, and watching people progress and get back to what they're doing it's fantastic. I couldn't imagine doing anything else.
Well, thank goodness that you say that. And, and again, our clinics, like you said, have lots of space, and we're, of course, still wearing PPE and masks and screening people for all of the appropriate screening. So I think at this stage, our staff and our patients who come in are feeling, we want to make sure everyone's safe, and everyone has been very safe. So it's been nice to see that continue on and allow us to provide ongoing care. And of course, there's a lot that we've done through telehealth as well. So that's always an option and often supplements what we're doing in the clinic as well. All right, I think it's time. Let's see who's going to win this Hyperice. We'll have one of our backstage crew is going to come on, and we will do a drawing to see. Here's actually another question I missed. So as either Sarah or Nick's going to come on for this drawing, but James Coburn is kind of curious. Maybe we can both give James, as soon as Sarah does her drawing, we can both give James what we believe is our favorite core stability exercise to complement strength training. But let's start with Sarah. Sarah, who is the winner of the Hypervolt Go?
The winner is Allie Marshall. Congratulations, Allie.
Good job, Allie. I think Allie, she's a kinesiologist down at URI. I think you will love that, Allie, and make sure you take it into your class to show it off to all of your friends, and we'll reach out to you and coordinate getting that to you. We have the Hyperice as well as many other of those products at all of our clinics these days. So it's a nice, fun tool for people to add into their repertoire of feel-good things at home. All right, James, this is for James. Aaron, what is your favorite core stability exercise to complement your strength training? I'm going to assume, let's say, what complements your deadlifts as well as your squats and other lower body? What are your favorite core stability exercises?
I think to start, my favorite one is the one they actually do. So a lot of people who are involved in strength training, especially if you're into the barbell movements like the squat, bench, and deadlift, and whatever else you can think of, they kind of skip their accessory work a lot of the time. I know I'm guilty of it as well. But I would say something that really incorporates, working on whole body stiffness. So being able to be stable through, your trunk, including your abdominal region and your lumbar spine. And then also incorporating, some shoulder stability. So I know it's a little lame, but planks are fantastic. And doing a higher level plank, you work on core stability and you work on shoulder stability and some shoulder health all at the same time. So they're really, really good. And if people did more of them for accessory work, we'd probably see a lot less injuries and, a lot better numbers on the platform.
Well, I was going to say the plank, and now that you've called it lame, now I feel lame for saying, well, I was going to say the plank because of all the reasons you just said. So maybe it's because we're PTs, or I don't know, but I agree. I love the plank, and I also love it because there's so many variations of it. You can keep mixing it up, whether you're on your forearms or even on a full hands. The side plank, you can add in some rotations, you can add in a lot of different things to the plank, and you can measure yourself over time to see how you're changing. How long can you plank for, and put different challenges in place. So I agree. If there was one thing we could get all of our people in our community to do when it came to their core was to simply plank it every day, we may be out of business for when it came to dealing with the back. So anyway, let's see who we have. We'll see if we've got any last questions. But before we do that, let's see who we have next week. Next week, Thursday at 1 o'clock, same time, same place. We are joined by the one and only Dr. Andrew Horton. There he is with one of his kids, his little boy. He also has a cute little girl at home. And we'll be giving away another Hyperice a gadget next week. This is the Hyperice Sphere. It's really cool. It vibrates. It's like a ball. You can lean on the wall with it. You can get into all those nasty, trigger points. And Andrew is gonna really help us with some ideas and strategies for exercising at home, because I anticipate that that's the only time Andrew gets to exercise these days. He has I think his daughter maybe only 1, and his son is 3 or 4. So yeah, Andrew probably doesn't have much of a life. So I hope you're exercising lots at home. Let's see this last question here that we'll take from Vadihi Sawan. I apologize so much if I said your name wrong. It is my accent. Any recommendations to reduce DOMS in someone who just started with strength training? Good question.
Yeah, that's a tough one because it's just part of it, really. And as you do more and more, you're gonna like it more and more. Believe it or not, you're gonna start chasing the DOMs. So initially, the best way to avoid it is to not make it happen. So even though it may feel good to persistently be adding weight and adding reps, increasing volume in various ways, it's probably a good idea to slow it down a little bit, especially when you're starting out. Because like Michelle said earlier, even though things feel good at the time, give it some time, give it 12 hours, 24 hours, and you'll have a better idea of how it really feels.
Yeah.
So that would be, suggestion number 1 is, proper programming. So just make sure you're not doing too much too soon, which can actually throw a lot of people off as far as like a long-term goal. They say, oh, that hurts, I don't want to do that. Yeah. And then the other part of it would be, active recovery. So the next day, instead of sitting on the couch for 3 hours because you're sore, get up and move. It'll hurt initially, and then you're going to feel great.
So for those who don't know, DOMS is a fancy term for delayed onset muscle soreness. And I'm sure those people who have not done any strength training before probably had no idea what that is. And you will probably get some muscle soreness. And Aaron brings up key points. I would throw in there as well that remember that delayed onset muscle soreness is because you did some damage and now you're trying to promote some healing. So when there's some damage and some lactic acid buildup, you want to promote healing, and some of that healing you can promote not just from the movement and getting that blood flow and the nutrients through that area, but also making sure you get a good night's sleep. I'm going to sound like a mother now. So your mother's listening, Aaron, so she'll know all of these things. Make sure you get a good night's sleep, and you will want to sleep more. If you've done strength training, you're going to be tired because it works your body more. Make sure you eat well. Now, I'm not going to say you suddenly need to go and, make yourself a big strength, smooth protein smoothie afterwards. But by ensuring that you have a balanced diet and get a combination of the right fats, fruits and vegetables, and protein is going to help with your recovery, because you're rebuilding muscles and building new muscles when you're doing strength training. So nutrition will truly help with your recovery and will help with your overall performance. And, as you get older, nutrition becomes even more I think important, because you don't recover quite as fast as you get older. And also hydration, staying hydrated and getting the right amount of fluids that you need as well. So all of those more motherly things are going to help with that delayed onset muscle soreness. Well, listen, Aaron, we have gone for 50 minutes, which is maybe a record. So thank you so much. I love all the people that participated, really appreciate it. And what I look forward to seeing many of you next week. And we are giving away that Hyperice Sphere. We will be with Andrew Horton, and we will be speaking about all the exercise and movement that you can do in the safety of your own home. We'll probably jump onto dry needling as well. That's something that is a area of expertise to Andrew. So for people who are curious what dry needling is all about, please join us. So Aaron, Dr. Deadlift, once again, thank you. I really appreciate everything. And to all those listeners out there, enjoy deadlifting this weekend.
Thank you for having me. It was awesome.